Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm part of the infant feeding team here in Dumfries and Galloway, and along with my colleague Andrea, we're going to take you through making up a formula feed and feeding your baby safely. Before we get started with making up the feed and going through that process, we're going to talk to you a little bit about skin to skin and what to look for with our baby's communication cues.
So once your baby's born, your midwives may have already spoken about skin to skin. Once your baby's born, having them in close to you starts off that bonding process. It helps regulate the baby's temperature, helps regulate their heartbeat, and it also helps bring you down from cloud 9. It also helps baby lower their anxiety hormones, lower their cortisol hormone. It's really good for you and your baby to be able to feed in skin to skin. We'll go on to talk about that a little bit more later on. Along with starting off with skin to skin, that's when, just after the wee one's born, that's when you might notice them showing you different feeding cues. Now, rather than a baby being governed by a clock and saying they need to feed every 3 or 4 hours, it's really worthwhile what we call responsive feeding, being led by responsive feeding, and that means going by their feeding cues. You can see some of these here. So the early cues, we're talking about the baby just stirring, maybe starting to wriggle. The younger the baby is, if they start to look as though they're wakening up, that can be enough of a feeding cue. Mouth opening, turning head. You then have your mid cues, and then you have the kind of 0 to 60 feed me now cues. Okay. So if you can get in these early days, it helps reduce things like wind. It helps the baby not be distressed when they're getting fed. It's really important, especially in the early days, because baby's safe place is with their mum. It's in that skin to skin position, and it's really important that we minimise how many people feed that baby in the early days. This is important for helping build relationships, helping that bonding process, but also that baby is used to your heartbeat noise, used to your tummy gurgling, used to, that's where they feel safe. Also, when you're using a lot of skin to skin, when you're enjoying that time with your baby, try not to use strong smelling perfumes or shower gels, because babies, it always sounds like an insult to the mum, and it's not meant, but it gets them used to your smell, and it gets them used to know that that is their safe place, that's where they can feel calm.
So we're going to go over how to make up a feed safely. One of the key things before you even start making up your feed is to ensure that you've washed and dried your hands thoroughly, and also make sure that all the surfaces that you're going to be putting your sterilised equipment on has also been wiped down, just to save any nasty bugs and bacteria getting onto your sterilised equipment. When you take your bottle and teat out of the steriliser, ensure that you don't dry it with anything. If you're going to do anything, you just shake off the excess fluid and place it back down. We shouldn't be drying inside bottles and things, because again, we could be putting nasty bacteria into the bottle, so it defeats the purpose of the steriliser. We should never ever be making feeds up with tap water, just straight out the tap, and we should never be heating and feed up in the microwave. It's really dangerous, it can leave hot spots in the bottle and potentially could scald your baby, so that is a no-go. What we want is fresh tap water into the kettle, and obviously I haven't got a kettle here, this is my kettle today. We're going to boil that, and a litre of water in the kettle we would not cool for any longer than 30 minutes. So we must make sure that you don't leave it any longer than that. So you would pour your freshly boiled water into your bottle, and I'm going to make up 2 ounces. Whoop. I'm going to make up 2 ounces. So make sure that your bottle's sitting on a flat surface so that you can get your measurements correct. 60 mils is 2 ounces, so it's 30 mils per ounce. And what we're going to do is, we're going to get our scoop of powder. Now, it's really important that we get the powder right to go into the water. If we were to put a heaped scoop of powder like this into the water, there's a chance we could upset our baby's tummies, we could cause constipation, we can also cause dehydration. So this is too much powder. If we were to do like half the scoop, then your baby isn't going to be gaining the nutrients that it needs. So it's really, really important that we have a sterilised knife or something that has got a good flat surface on, and when we scoop our powder, obviously you're going to scoop this, knock the powder back into your tub, but we make sure that we've got a nice level scoop of powder. I'm going to put so because I have got 60 mils, I need 2 level scoops into my bottle. And then we would put the teat on, and we're going to give that a really, really good shake. And it's really important that we shake it really well to make sure all that powder dissolves in our water. You probably would put the lid on to do this. And that is your baby's feed. Now, obviously, the potential that it is still too warm, so you could put the cold tap on, obviously keeping the teat away from the tap, and you could run the cold water on it to bring the feed to the temperature that you require, or you could probably just sit it in a little bit of cold water just to bring that temperature down. Always, always ensure that you put a little bit of milk out onto your wrist before you feed your baby to feel what temperature it's at, because obviously we don't want babies to be scalded. So always check the temperature before you go to feed your baby. So it's really important that we make one feed up at a time. We shouldn't be making 24 hours worth of bottles up. The reason we suggest this is because we don't want babies getting upset tummies, we don't want powder to be in cold milk gathering bacteria, etc. So please, please make your baby's feed up as you go, because the powder should be put into the hot water to ensure that any bacteria that is around does get killed. It's really, really important that we only make up one feed at a time. Please do not make up a whole day's worth of milk. The powder should be put into the milk while the milk is still hot, so we can get rid of any harmful bacteria. We shouldn't be putting anything else into that milk. We shouldn't be adding any rusks, any baby rice, nothing else should go into the baby's milk. We should be sticking to the first milk. The first milk should last your baby until it's a year old, to when it can then move on to cow's milk.
And definitely no need for an extra scoop. It's just sticking to what it says with the instructions, that it's just 1 scoop per ounce.
Should you be going out and about, boil your kettle, pop that water into a vacuum flask, pop your powder into a sterilised pot, take them out with you in your bag, and then when your feed needs made up, you've got your boiling water and your powder that you can put together while you're out. Some people buy the little ready-made feeds as well. Just ensure that when you have used either your made-up feed or your ready-made feed, that should be disposed of in an hour's time. Please don't go back to the same feed for the baby. So if the baby is then hungry half an hour later, you must make up a fresh feed for baby, just because of harmful bacteria that might have collected during the time that the feed's been sitting. So how do we hold our baby when we go to give it its feed? So it's really important that we cuddle our baby in. Have your baby slightly upright. We don't have babies in a lying down position, can encourage baby to choke. It's not very comfortable for feeding. So nice and cuddled in, and it's really important we can make eye contact with our baby. for that bonding and responding to each other. So please try and put phones down, try and give your baby that attention whilst feeding. It's a really magical time. Give you that, Andrew. So please ensure that the teat is filled with milk. We shouldn't be having a teat half full. We should make sure that the teat is full of milk as we go to put it towards baby's mouth. And we should make sure that we sort of brush the top lip with the teat. Try not to sort of be too forceful of giving a teat. We should be allowing the baby to naturally take the teat itself. And throughout the feed, make sure that the teat continues to be filled with milk. I personally would say once your baby's had possibly 10-15 mils, I would stop baby and I would give baby a rewind. So you can either pop baby up onto your shoulder, good circular winding, or you can pop baby onto your lap. When you're holding baby under the chin, try and make sure that baby's chin isn't dipped down, because it obviously restricts the windpipe. We want to see that you're holding baby's chin up so that baby can breathe effectively. And then we can go back to feeding again. So once baby's finished its feed, don't put baby straight down to bed. Pop baby up on your shoulder, back to winding again. Ensure there's no wind that's left in there, because then when baby lies down it might be a little bit sick. But also enjoy that cuddle time, enjoy that nurturing, enjoy having that moment with your baby. It's really, really important for your baby's brain development to have that close, loving relationship. Please try and remember to respond to your baby. When your baby cries, pick your baby up. Also, just because your baby fed 45 minutes ago doesn't mean that your baby's not hungry or thirsty again. So remember the feeding cues from earlier on. Really, really important for baby's communication and not the relationship you build with your baby, that we really key into what your baby's looking for. So if your baby is looking for further feeds, then ensure that you make a little bit more up. So it's really important that we pay attention to when baby's finished his or her feed. You may have made up 60 mils, but if baby stops at 45, 50 mils, we really need to acknowledge that and try not to force the rest of the milk in. They're just like us, so if we were feeling a bit full, we would want to stop. If you try and give the baby that last bit of milk, the chances are they're just going to be sick. So really be mindful of your baby's cues when it's feeding also. Once baby has finished its feed, pop baby up onto your shoulder and wind baby again, just to make sure that baby's tummy's settled before you pop baby into bed. It's really, really important for yours and your baby's relationship that we respond to our baby's cues, that we have that close time. It's a really magical time having a baby, and responding to your baby when your baby's crying and meeting your baby's needs really does allow you to build that close, loving relationship, which will go on throughout your child's life. If you're needing any information regarding what formula milks to use, then you can go to the First Steps Nutrition website, which gives you all the information of the formulas that are on the market. You can get leaflets off of us. We have a formula leaflet and how to feed your baby safely, which has all the information in it that we've discussed today. And there's also an information leaflet on the UNICEF Baby Friendly page, which talks about infant formulas and responsive bottle feeding. So these are really, really good sources for you to gather information on.